Hey there, YouTube. SkepticalRoot. Today I'm going to be responding to a video originally published by Dr. Christy Winters. This is Reasonable Questions for Anti-SJWs. It is a collaborative work with several other YouTubers in the social justice community. While I probably would say that I align myself to some extent with a lot of their goals and aspirations, I don't agree with their tactics, their methodologies, their probabilistic outcomes, or their lack of reasonableness when it comes to making rational decisions and having rational viewpoints about stuff. I'm going to break this video up into a small series based on the number of segments in the video because it's 15 minutes long, 14 minutes and 17 seconds to be exact. And including my commentary in there, this would end up being a sizable video, even for my channel, where somebody like me just likes to keep talking. So without further ado, let's sit here and watch the video, and we'll discuss it as it goes along.
Are you able to understand the irony of responding to the perceived political correctness of the left with exasperated reactionary hypersensitivity of your own?
Okay, I don't know that anybody that does that, but then again, the question that he's really getting at here, I think, is this a case of the pot calling the kettle black? And maybe. But at the same time, if somebody comes up to you and tells you that you're on fire and you're not, and they keep insisting that you're on fire, eventually you get to this point where you exasperatedly shout back at them that you're not on fire, just leave you alone, stop telling me I'm on fire when I'm clearly not on fire. And there is a level of frustration that is understandable. And it's understandable from both sides, don't get me wrong. But to respond in kind to somebody is not inappropriate. So, not exactly sure how that's a good question. It's a social question, but it certainly doesn't seem like it's one coming from the perspective of a social justice person asking this of an anti-social justice person, because it's just a communication problem. So,
what is it with you people and skulls?
No comment.
How do you define right-wing? Anti-SJWs often have an aversion to being labeled as right-wing, yet they regularly defend the right and bash the left. Therefore, why is being labeled right-wing a bad thing to you? And if it's because right-wing is used as a pejorative, can you not see how labeling people as SJWs or regressives is also pejorative?
Lot to unpack there. It's not one simple question, but I would define right-wing as people who follow right-wing ideologies. Things such as small government, lower taxes, independence of intervention from the government or from the state in general. Those that, I don't know, have what I might call a naive faith in the goodness of humanity, to be left unchecked to some extent, as opposed to left wing, where I would consider someone who believes that collectively we can get together and make decisions that support and help one another, and try to minimize the negative effects of being in a social group with limited resources and needing to compete with one another for the advancements of ourselves, our survival, and the collection and use of those particular limited resources. Left-right dichotomy, yes, but that completely ignores the libertarian versus authoritarian end of the spectrum, just particularly left and right. Also, I think here that what else did he say?
And if it's because right wing is used as a pejorative, can you not see how labeling people as SJWs or regressives is also a pejorative?
Perhaps. However, the SJW term is intended to be pejorative. I'm sure Tim knows that, but regressive is thrown around a lot, sometimes incorrectly, but it's descriptive. When someone has a political view that literally wants to move things backwards, to take back progress that we've made because of somebody's feelings, then that is literally regression from the progress that we made from our point right now to a time backwards. Somebody who wants to repeal gay marriage in the United States is regressive. They're trying to take things back to how things were. As is somebody who wants to impose blasphemy laws so that we don't offend the religious in any capacity. That's progressive. That takes us backwards to where people in this country, like they are in several Middle Eastern countries, where you can be criminally prosecuted for saying things that offend others. That's regressive. That's not liberal. That it's not even necessarily authoritarian, but it's certainly not. It's not liberal left. It's authoritarian left, and it's all in the favor of somebody's feelings. Feelings are personal choices. We decide how we want to feel about things, and then we feel that way about them. In cases like a lot of these people in this video, they're deciding to feel certain ways for certain people. But even if the people that have these particular feelings or ideas feel this way, it's still their choice. They have decided to feel this way. Telling somebody that they're not good enough is them accepting that judgment upon themselves and going with it. They can decide that the person who told them that doesn't know what they're talking about. Some of these things are harder to change than others, but they're all choices. All of our reactions to things are responses that we've learned. And we've decided that based on whatever outcome we got from them, that was the best choice. Had we felt that, somebody getting upset because they were called a nigger in school all the time suddenly gets used to it and just thinks that's not a big deal, grows up and goes out in the world, isn't offended by the term nigger. Somebody who goes to school and is called nigger all the time by their peers is suddenly called a nigger by a white person. Really, unless they decide that that's not an acceptable use, but it's their decision to decide that, then they can decide to be offended, and they can then have a negative reaction to it. Choices. It's all choices. Calling someone regressive when they're regressive, and then thinking that that's a negative slur of some kind, that's their choice to decide that.
Rather than telling people you disagree with to drink bleach, wouldn't it be more productive for you to have an actual conversation about the issues you feel matter? Or is it just easier to do the bleach thing?
Tom, and I'm not the first person to point this out to Tom, the drinking bleach thing is not that you should drink bleach. It's that I will drink bleach in order to escape this particular hole of insanity that we've been drawn down. It's not about you. It's about me doing it. that this stuff is so crazy that my only relief will be the sweet blessing of death. If people are telling you to drink bleach, then they're doing it wrong, frankly. So, yeah.
You claim to be proponents of rational, logical, evidence-based argumentation. That's great. That's entirely laudable. But when I look at your online activity, when I look at, I don't know, for example, your Twitter feed, that's often not what I see. How do you reconcile this claim to be evidence-based and rational and logical against stuff like, oh, I was just trolling you, oh, I was just shitposting, or TLDR?
First, Phil, Twitter's 140 characters. By the time you tag one or two people in it, you might have 100 characters left in order to make a statement or a comment and get it out there into the ether. Twitter's is basically for shit posting. It's for sharing memes and crazy stuff like that. The nature of Twitter is that it's fast and loose and free. It is not a debate platform. YouTube is a better debate platform. Your blog isn't all that great. You tend to spew walls of words instead of being concise. But it's still better than Twitter. Had you said YouTube comments or something like that, where there's a relatively larger space to make citations or things like that, that's one thing. But not Twitter. Come on, really? That was a massive straw man. To even use Twitter as your example. So we are rational and logically based, and I can reconcile this between that position, evidence based as well. I can reconcile that position between that and shit posting on Twitter, because how do you cite paragraphs or from an abstract, let alone an entire paper, without linking, which you can do, but then again you're losing more characters. So let's say you use tiny URL, you end up with a URL that's 20 characters. You've already tagged 3 people in it, leaving you with 87 minus 20, so 67 characters in order to say something. Who's going to read a Twitter post that says, like, look at my research here? That's not what Twitter's for. People do it that way on Twitter. They try, and it doesn't... Basically, it's just not what the platform's designed for. So, without trying to I don't know, flake out or waffle on that, you can most likely assume that people who put stuff on Twitter are shitposting, especially if you don't agree with it and they're tweeting it at you. So just expect that. Assume that that's what it's going to be. And then if they provide something, okay, great. But wrong platform, man. Yeah. That's how I can reconcile it, because it's the wrong platform.
No, seriously? What is it with you people and skulls?
Are you with?
Yeah, and again.
Are you aware that the ridiculous buzzwords you helped to popularize, like SJW and cuck and regressive, have all lost whatever meaning they once had, and only serve now as casual insults and pejoratives to derail any meaningful conversation?
No, they haven't. Any more than the term racist has become meaningless or something like that. Because some people overuse the term does not mean that it becomes useless. If some people want to dismiss an argument because there's a word in there that somebody doesn't like, okay, well, they're going to do that anyway. Even if I come up with a rational argument, or an evidence-based argument against what they're saying, that doesn't mean they're going to pay attention to it. So, I don't know what you're going on about.
For the last time, what is it with you people and committing actual literal felonies? Like, you might want to work on that? I mean, I thought the Ralph retort was so rational when he was fantasizing about beating up women with dyed hair, but then he assaulted a police officer, and finally I was convinced.
Alright, so this is the last one for this section. Next section will be feminism, but to address H-Bomber Guy here, really, So one guy recently who aligned himself perhaps in an anti-social justice warrior group. Well, not even really a group. Community? No, not even community. Just some guy who didn't like social justice warriors. Gets arrested for assaulting a police officer. Okay, people can be dicks. So, as several other people who have responded to this particular one have pointed out, what about Hannibal the Victor? I thought he was a convicted child molester. I don't see you talking about him in your video, H-Bomber Guy. So, is this guilt by association now? Because everywhere people are dicks? I mean, I know, and I'm going to say this knowing full well that this is perhaps a bit of a straw man, but this is what happens with Gamergate. You know, there were some people in the movement who used it to shitpost and to go after people and whatever, who also were bad people because they stalked and harassed people, but they also supported Gamergate. That doesn't mean that the movement Gamergate was about that any more than, you know, Hannibal the Victor made social justice about pedophilia or child molestation or whatever the charge exactly was. I don't remember exactly. It's been over a year, I think, at least since he stopped showing up on YouTube. So, but that's a guilt by association fallacy. We're not the Ralph Retort. I never watched the Ralph Retort. I'm aware of him, but don't know how much of it how much I would agree with him on the stuff that he went on about. So, so that's it for part one. Part two coming up next is feminism. We'll address those as they come up. Although this is really the theme for the entire video, the rest of the video, including, is the word feminism comes up repeatedly and repeatedly. The general questions part was just ones that didn't mention feminism, I guess. So that's it. Thanks for watching part one. Part two coming up next. Goodbye and hello, as always.
If it doesn't,